Alright folks, we are back on one of my least favorite maps in War of Rights. It's not because of the terrain. The terrain of the map is actually fine and interesting. It's that the defenders don't have nearly enough tickets to make it usually an interesting affair. It's far more attacker biased than just about any other map. And what compounds but doesn't cause that is the placement of the Union artillery. So only the defenders get artillery on this map. That is the Union on this one. This is a kind of fictitious scenario. But the default placement of that battery probably exacerbates the problem because Union already will try to spawn on this after the CSA wipes it, and then they'll die out of formation. I think it wouldn't be... I don't think it would change the map overall to get rid of the arty, but I think it would be less bad for the Union if it were removed. Now, I think it would be better for the Union if the default artillery placement was, you know, like, this is not a crazy place to have it, right? It's near a road, or you could do it near the road over here. It's secure. It's on the boundary of what is out of bounds for the CSA, and then allow the Union to move it up to this crest, and then keep the tickets their way, and then see how the meta develops. I think it's a better bet, but I still think that the CSA would probably win those. The CSA has an interesting mix of weapons on this map. They have ranged options, but they also have some 1842s. And so the CSA can be potent at long range and at short range, but they won't be overwhelming at either. The Union is armed almost exclusively... No, I don't believe any Union have 1842s on this. And so their advantage is going to be at long range. This is one, if the CSA is going to gift you running out in the open, to me this is exactly what you want as the Union. I'm a little surprised the CSA didn't go with maybe what I had thought was a more meta option, which was to go through the corn, which provides you with an abundant... You pretty much come right into spawn as the CSA come through the corn, run up to a fence, and if the Union defends the backside or even this hill, the CSA and those 1842s that are there are going to do great work. Plus, your other CSA, excuse me, who maybe aren't going to push right up to the fence but might push over here, are going to have a bunch of out-of-formation kills in the Union artillery. And so that always feels to me like the better CSA push. Anytime you can get concealment, and you can, and the concealment works with your armaments relative to your opponent, you probably want to take that. But again, this game seems to have been removed from most of the events that I play in, and so I tend to only see it on the... I know it was long past due to have that removed, because it was... The Union had not fairly won that map. I don't know, I've played for... It's almost going to be 5 years in a couple months. Maybe once. Maybe? And again, I think that was probably with an imbalance in quantity and quality in favor of the Union. So anyways, this is very much a CSA favor. But if you're the Union and your advantage is with long-range shooting because you don't have buck and ball, then any one of these vistas that you're going to get are going to be good. I'm really shocked that the CSA losses. I guess the other way to handle this corn would be to make it out of bounds for both sides and then force the CSA to push up. I don't know. All right, officers, we can do this while we have a long-range skirmish going on. All right. Seems fairly even in terms of the officers who I know. Perhaps, again, in terms of the officers I know, maybe a couple, maybe not a couple. No, not if Pax is on the Union. It looks pretty even to me in terms of officers. Some pretty veteran guys, some pretty good guys, and so I think the tickets on the map are likely to be the deciding factor, and that's too bad. When you can pretty much predict with 90% accuracy how things are going to go.
Aim for the chest. Aim for the chest. Make sure your bayonets are on, boys.
Boys, put your bayonets on. Put your bayonets on.
They could charge us at any moment.
Yeah, you guys got fixed bayonets. You guys got fixed bayonets. Hit a fire, just keep shooting them up.
Kind of a worthless screenshot with the smoke, but not a knock on the smoke or the number of players. It's just, it's kind of the way that is. But good infilating angle here. You should see how much artillery does the Union actually get out. Looks like some artillery, or maybe most of it, is opting to stay up. Mobile caisson, some are up, others are back. I'm really surprised the CSA let the Union have that. Here, if you don't see what the Union's doing, that's the defilade. And it works for both, right? But if you control the defilade and the Union's much closer, you come up so you can see over it, you shoot, and you scoop back.
Cut him down, boys. Cut him down, boys. Cut him down, cut him down. Shoot.
Okay, we now have two CSA companies look like they're making a beeline either for the artillery. Yeah, it looks more like the artillery than the corn.
Spread it out, spread it out.
Union, it was a little slow to react, but they're now reacting. The CSA, alright, killing some out of formation Union, which again exacerbates a bad situation. The CSA embedding themselves on the Union guns, and we'll try to force the Union to pay some tickets to remove them. We see, even with the Union kind of having the shooting advantage, like this has been the Union's fight generally at range, not melee, right? The tickets are even. And so, assuming that the CSA only works it in closer from here, it's going to get worse. You have a second Union company that looks like it's going to... I mean, the CSA needs to be moving already. Yeah. You got to either... Yeah, you got to get that flag up, and then... So this group is doing a better job embedding themselves, getting their numbers up, and then maybe pushing after they have those numbers up. Yeah, but to me, if you're the CSA and you got buck and ball, if you have buck and ball, you show up right here, and that's a pretty line for buck and ball, right? Out in the open, 50 yards, good spread on that buck and ball, and you should do very nice. So, all right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, okay, I see. The officer's joining the flag. I gotcha. Yeah. All right, so we have two 2v2s. And again, even though I think the Union kind of has the best terrain it's going to have, it looks ever so slightly behind on tickets. Joseph D. and Blake over here.
He can't be. He's fun workers.
Well, the Union got the one guy peeking, so good shot. I will never hit that shot. Okay, now this Union group's going to square off against Blake's group. So they'll give themselves some concealment and cover versus Blake's group, which has only concealment. All right, well, we see what's going on over there. It looks over here. I don't know that running is really going to matter. Right? You can't outrun the bullets. You're allowing the Union to get a few free tickets off of you as you run away, and you're not going to fool any of them as to where you're going. And as long as the Union eventually calls it quits on the shooting, they should be able to move, and you would assume that company would move first, and then the further company would move later. Union's going to push in. They're going to try to reclaim their artillery. Lost a couple likely out of formation, and then almost almost everybody gets out. All right. Well, you saw it here first. Okay, what does that CSA group do? Yeah, you're gonna try to rotate over here, but again, by the time you get to here, the Union should see what's up, and they should already begin pivoting to move it. Blake's group is, right, this is still his group, I think. He was on the right of that road before, is now coming up. They had the defilade, right? Up until a certain point. And you can see this is what it is. I don't know, well, first of all, why I did that, but I don't think this group is fat enough to deal with that. Maybe. And now, this CSA group is pushed off under Joseph D. But again, as good as this has gone for the Union, yeah, they put the CSA attackers down first. I think the Union's not that far from going engage themselves. And that poor flag bearer, the friendlies that were there are no longer there. Sir, you just need to know where spawn is. Okay, well. So yeah, this meta has changed a little bit since I did this last a while ago. You can see that canister trail. That's a nice canister trail. That is exact. So I remember that this was a point I was making in my videos before I took a sabbatical here. It's that usually canister on slightly elevated ground on a line, right? So either in the flank or in like a column charge is absolutely devastating, as you just witnessed, right? Yeah, and so what the Union's doing here is they're just fighting different CSA companies piecemeal. And so the CSA now is really starting to burn through their own tickets, as they seem to be almost panicking, making this much worse than it has to be. I still don't understand the reluctance to use the corn. It doesn't seem like you're timing out, because I'm not timing out. Right, so we see the CSA movement at a distance. It's going to be full send.
Rambo, on your left, Rambo.
I mean, this Union group, yeah, they're doing the right thing. So what they're doing here is they're trading space for time. So even though they had moved up here and made it difficult for the CSA to push out from behind the hill, if they stay there, they're likely going to get swamped by, right, the rest of the CSA, who seem to be pushing in this direction. And so this defilade worked very well for the Union the first time. And if it worked the first time, maybe it'll work a second time.
Officer, did they cross the field to him? East? They might have crossed the field to our east.
They did not. But I think I said at the beginning, this is one of my least favorite maps in War of Rights because of the historical tick rate imbalance. But I did want to see if the improved ballistics, basically the improved accuracy. I don't know that any of the scopes matter. I don't think they come into play here. But I wanted to see how it would work on a map like this, where the Union has a decided long-range advantage, particularly now that it's been able to get some of its artillery out. And the prevalence of 1842s for the CSA gives them advantages at their shorter range, but not the longer ones. And I want to see if it was enough to turn this map around and make it a little bit more interesting. Because again, the terrain itself is kind of cool. I think the artillery placement and the default tickets, not so much. I'm also of the mind that in general, but it's a little more complicated. Well, I didn't know the Union had a manpower advantage. That larger servers can benefit defenders. I think if the defenders can defend the point in such a way that it allows them to generally shoot. So there's not a lot of concealment that leads directly into point. In cases where there is a lot of concealment or cover going into point, I think it actually allows the attackers to get in there. With the larger servers and the faster respawn times, I think once the attackers embed themselves on a point, they can make it almost impossible for the defenders to remove them. But this is one where I would say if the defenders can get on the point with those 1842s, they can make it very costly for the Union to counterattack. But it's not as much so as maybe on some of the other maps that are out there. Like sometimes when the Union embeds themselves on point on Sunken Lane with their 1842s, particularly how common they are on that map, it's tremendously costly, even at short distance, for the CSA to come through the lane and grab a recap, even with the automatic artillery advantage the CSA has as defenders on that map. We see now the CSA is sending, was it 2 or 3 flags? 3 flags through the corn. Union don't seem at all surprised. They have one company on the hill, one there. Another one not that far off, and one pretty far off. And now we just got to see what the CSA is able to do. You can see again the Union doing, I think, a better job controlling space here, because they're not as close as they were before. Okay, this CSA group got out pretty well. I don't know where these casualties came from. I did not see those over here, unless it was from Rambo's. And again, why, dude? Why? Again, in an open field where your officer hasn't called for 5-man spacing, you probably want to be in formation. If your officer calls for 5-man spacing and there's no way to get in formation, then maybe you think about kneeling, but... I wonder what's going on over here. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Because with this lost, the Union, I mean, you could pretty much just know to shoot down the fence and you'll probably hit something. You can see the CSA coming out. The Union's got a nice line. Actually, it's got 2 nice lines.
Right here. Everyone push up the hill. Right here. Push up the hill. Right here. Go, go, go. Charge.
Maybe neither of which were optimally angled, but they're certainly letting the CSA bring themselves up before they countercharge. And because the Union were up in tickets, you can kind of allow the CSA to get in with the longer term goal of wiping more and making up a bunch of it out of formation at the back end. But I think the Union's playing this smart. Again, the way you can play this hill and other crests is you stand behind it so that it kind of acts as a defilade, and like only your chest and above, kind of your, you know, the rifle in your eyes are above it.
Everyone back up. Good job, good job.
And that just makes it so much harder. You do? Your flag seems like it's right there, man. But yeah, this is not the normal Cooke's countercharge. I'll say that I like it, that it's not the normal Cooke's countercharge. The Union looks like they're going to press this corner now and try to knock the CSA off of it. This is a fat group of Union here on the corner. And there are 2 other Union companies who are close by who could pursue. Okay, one CSA flag is decided. It's better to keep the thing than lose it. Man, that guy really looks like he's the CSA, that Artie guy. But CSA doesn't get Artie on this map. And I don't think the CSA group understands what's about to hit them. That CSA's flag's best bet is to run out of bounds. But instead, the Union is going to cut off the retreat path. And then they're going to probably move down that fence so that is not an option. And that was very nicely done by the Union. So I'm surprised, given what I thought was pretty much a well-balanced officer lineup on a generally CSA favored map, has turned into so. You know what? Now that I look at the tickets, it's actually much. It's much closer than I thought. The CSA is not down. They're like just into taking losses. The Union is on the verge of going into taking losses. We got 23 minutes left, and so the attackers have to be happy that they have the defenders almost in taking losses with 23 minutes left. It's a hard map. It can be a hard map for the CSA, though, to shoot the Union defenders down into a lower ticket stage because of the CSA's weapons. So unless they can close space, what the Union can do, and this was true even before, I think back when we had 350 max and the pre-ballistics update, the Union would still sometimes mass numbers up here on the corners, and they could see most of the field that was in front of them. So now we have, this is the Union going to taking loss to the defenders, and you could see their, CSA's maybe at 10% of the way through taking losses. And so for the CSA, this has to feel good. Like, this has not gone your way. I think the Union has played this better than I've seen them play this in a long time. And the CSA took some of the, maybe the less meta and the less optimal options. CSA is going to push up through Union already. This time the Union is not opted to do anything about it. So that means the Union is going to take a bunch of out-of-formation tickets. And this is why you play the maps to the end, right? Because they can end very differently. So the Union does have a nice little battery. Again, kind of where I think the Union battery ought to start, or a little bit in front of it. And then we'll see how that would go. But the CSA seems to be delivering a more conventional attack here. I thought we had two, so I see two CSA flags going right to the mound here. I don't know if they all have loads and they're ready for melee, but if any of them have 1842s, this should be their fight. I do want to see the view from the improvised Union battery back here.
South-southwest, south-southwest. Coming south-southwest. It's ball punch. That aim is very, I don't think that's it. I would fire that. Fire. Hey, Arcane, if you fire, Willie is going to about shoot however you feel like it.
I'm gonna move my guys behind your team.
Looked good.
Maneuver.
It's hard to tell if it was just dust. Okay, on closer inspection, it seems to maybe have been a bit short, but it looked cool. Maybe at least suppressed. Not the actual suppression, but suppressed the shooting as the line of sight was reduced by the dust that was kicked up. But yeah, it was cool.
Try and stay a little bit spread out. Don't flip up.
At these ranges, you would still think the Union has a slight advantage. They haven't moved back to the fences, which would give them a greater one. That would also leave their artillery hanging, though. That also looked a little short, unless there's a big Union group left in here. There are some, or a big Union group, a big CSA group.
What means that? Yeah, I'm just so live. I'm
Look at this. You got all 4 CSA flags over here.
Keep shooting, goddamn. Watch our left.
Yeah, you can see the Union is moving up a company. Krabby Brute generally does it right, from what I've seen. And this Union group is going to push up. Unfortunately, it does not seem supported. And so while this might be good on the front end, I don't think it's going to end well for the Union. They seem to have run into the CSA lead wall, even though the CSA is on the attack. They get to throw the lead wall up here. And again, if there are 1842s in that line, this is the CSA's fight. CSA is nice and tight. They're dying in formation. Union, there's always a little bit of spread, and more so as the line gets longer. Union's counter pushing. It looks like with a group of skirmishers, or those who are at least fighting in loose order. You have another company back here and another guy out here. This is just a big old spread out attack. And look, the math of this, why this is a bad idea. If you push the companies kind of in echelon, one at a time, like boom, 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 is that the defenders can throw everybody into that so that they're all respawning people while you lose one flag and you can't spawn anybody in. Now, the problem here is that this line needed to fall back. Well, I guess, yeah, you can do this either way. But either you have to fall back on the right or push up at the left or both, but you had to refuse the flank. That's the phrase I was searching for. But yeah, the CSA need to move this back. But all those CSA flags that are up are spawning people in. That Union company that was wiped, presumably they got their flag out, but their officers down, their NCOs are down, and they have to spend somewhere else to get healthy. And so that means now your fellow 3 companies are fighting against 4 of the enemy flags that are up and constantly spawning people in. And, you know, you can see what's happening here. I think the CSA maybe has pulled a slight tickets advantage. The Union has not been able to end this shootout. The CSA is on the verge of point. If you don't understand this map, it's pretty much as you come down this hill, you begin capping. Capping is out in that bowl there. And once those 42s get loaded with buck and ball and they get moving, the Union really doesn't have better options inside of 50 yards. And you can see this Union group realizes that game is up. They're not going to be able to spawn in enough to deal with this CSA group. And CSA lead wall held on this side. Maybe? The Union is about to go breaking. The CSA again now is maybe at 10 or 15% left in taking losses. But it's unclear the CSA even has to do that. That was an interesting shot from Union already. That actually got the blood splatter on the back side of the hill. It didn't look like an airburst. Alright, that's the CSA putting the Union in breaking first. The Union, for its part, has fallen back to the bushes, but not the fences, because they're probably worried about cap weight. Cap recaps out of the cards. CSA has embedded themselves. CSA is still hitting some shots. You can hear the Union's not that far behind. Union hasn't lost this match, but it doesn't feel like they're going to win. And now that I've checked it, we have 4 Union guns back here. Nope. That's my inability to count. That's 1, 2. That's 3. That's not a cannon. Those are 3 people. So you heard the man. No more canister in the Union rifled gun. No, the rifled gun absolutely has ammo. So does that Napoleon. That is Napoleon, right? Yeah, that Napoleon is stocked on ammo. So maybe the decision was just not to fire a canister because you want to save it for later? Huh.
Just a little. We have one that will use or
You can see the Union is ticking down through breaking faster than the CSA. It's to be expected.
Everybody hit F8. Everybody hit F8. Everybody hit F8. Yes, yes.
Right, boys. They are on the right side of the hill down that line. Take aim where that line ends on the right side of the hill. That's where they're at right there. Take aim. Look at the grass. And fire. Nice. How many meters? Just out of there and just shoot. Take your chest.
I have more fun fighting without my bayonet than I do fighting with bayonets. Yeah. Bayonet. Which is sort of
Alright, boys. Start shooting over the top. Independent fire to the left. To the left. To the left.
So you see, as the Union went right to try to shore up that angle, the CSA decided to charge the hay bales on the left. Didn't full send it. They sent 2 companies against the 1. The Union actually seemed to have done pretty well on that. And now the Union has reformed one of its lines so that it's 2v2. And this just seems to have not gone well at all for the CSA. They may lose their flag here. They got a couple of guys on it.
Kill that nigger lover right there. Kill that nigger lover.
Alright, so the CSA got... maybe they're... I don't know how that flag spawned. Anyway, there's nobody around. There's nobody around, but he still spawned somebody. So, well, these things we don't ask questions about. So the CSA 3 flag. Where's their blue flag? The CSA has a blue flag. I know they do. Was it out here? That looked a lot. It looked a lot like that one. Interesting. So the CSA is down a flag now. This gives them a bit of a conundrum because they're a little ahead on tickets. They have the defenders about halfway through breaking with 10.5 minutes left. That means you want to put them in breaking in the next 7. Seems like the pace of fighting should have no problem doing that. I think this right side is maybe not your best bet. They're back in hay bales. I think hay bales are, in many cases, kind of de facto hard cover. Okay, the group on the CSA left that looked like it was going to be the best bet has now decided to fall back. I thought maybe a concentrated 3 companies versus 1 would put a lot of ticket loss into this group and force it to go back and lick its wounds. It'll make it harder for the Union now to camp this down flagged. I don't know if the CSA is going to invest tickets in trying to get it up. Probably with this little time, you want it up soon. Alright, so yeah, the CSA is going to get that flag out. The Union has the concave that it wants. CSA kind of has the reverse. CSA really not have an angle here? I think the CSA could probably safely come out over here and probably find an angle on some Union. Could have other CSA push up here and then force the Union to kind of come to you. But it is close, man. Looks like the Union's probably going to go last stand here. They had about, I don't know, maybe 10% left of braking. I don't think they're going to be able to hold it at this pace for about 4 minutes, which is probably what they would need. They would have to almost full turtle, but that allows the CSA then to walk up to point. Artie is the only thing I can think of that might somehow keep the ticket trade close. But the CSA looks like they got 35% or so left of braking. And so the Union probably less than 5% left. And they're just losing more. So I think as well as it went for the Union at the beginning, it might be a fairly consistent end here. The only saving grace I can think of is that Union Artie will absolutely hit their points, that the Union will countercharge the CSA, knock down their flags, push them off of point, and then run up to their initial positions and shoot the CSA down as they try to trickle in. That would require a lot of mistakes that I don't see you getting with those officers. That's the defender's point of view. Looks like the Union's already pre-moving to try to shut down the last angle into point and just force the CSA to pay a ticket toll to get in there. All right, that's the Union going last stand with 5:40 left on the clock. The Union, they may well go final push on this charge now. They got maybe 15% left of braking, maybe. And that might be generous. Okay, the CSA is starting to push up here. I feel like... Yeah, so that part of the Union line is... Wow, that really cut the grass. Knocked down a bunch of guys. I don't know that actually killed anyone. Yeah, so the CSA is on cap. The Union probably is saving up for just that last push, in the hopes that this is it. It's kind of an all in, because every Union that goes down here is not coming back. I don't see anything of a spawn wave from the Union. These few out of lines were unnecessary for the CSA. I think they lost a little bit of time there. But if my rule is correct that you don't want to go last stand with more than 3 minutes, the Union went last stand with more than 3 minutes. CSA is now capping. They're at buck and ball range. The Union's going to put their big push up here on the left center. Those shots are connecting. And the Union feels they want to charge it up before the CSA get their buck and ball.
That's how we win this. That's how we win this.
That is correct. CSA is actually still capping, but there are more Union who have to get on point. It's a bit of a lagged effect. Union flags might as well go on point, but I think the CSA shot down enough of the Union before that they just didn't have the oomph to finish the CSA off on point, wipe their flags, and push them back. So, oh wow, that was so we got about 2 minutes left, but that is going to be the end of it. That's how thoroughly the Union was killed through Last Stand. So that was, yeah, that was far more interesting than it usually is. So I enjoyed that cast a lot more than I thought I would. I hope you enjoyed it too, and hope to have you back for the next one.